Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio with me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And we've got, I say this often, but this is not an exaggeration. We have a very esteemed guest. I'll explain in a minute why, but literally before we started the show, I had to ask him exactly how to pay him the proper respects and deference, because he has such an impressive resume that I wasn't exactly sure, and you'll know why when I tell you who our guest is this week. But we're going to talk about, he's got an ethos that I found absolutely fascinating, and it's be the weight behind the spear. And we're going to talk a lot about that. We're also going to talk about, for those business owners out there that are watching or listening, that, you know, it's been a struggle, especially post-COVID, hiring people, finding good people, and then retaining people bouncing around the different jobs and things like that. And we're going to talk a little bit about on some tips on how to attract, retain, recruit, retain, and develop people now that are leaders in this, you know, we are calling it the, you know, post-COVID era, the post-COVID generation, because everything changed so significantly a few years ago. And those kids that were, calling them kids now, I'm showing my gray hair here, but that are coming up, you know, everything changed so significantly. Not only those that were still in, you know, high school or maybe even in college, but even beyond that were, you know, in the early stages of their careers, and how things changed so significantly. So we're going to talk about a lot of that, because I know a lot of business owners are struggling with that. And our guest this week is Dr. and Colonel, now you know why, Josh McConkey. He's an award-winning best-selling author and esteemed emergency physician with over 2 decades of clinical experience. He served as a professor at none other than Duke University and maintains board certification in emergency medicine. With 22 years of military experience, Dr. McConkey now commands the 459th Aeromedical Staging Squadron in the U.S. Air Force Reserves, demonstrating exceptional leadership and dedication. Beyond his medical and military achievements, so wait, there's more, Dr. McConkey has been recognized for his contributions to education and community. He was honored in 2022 with induction into the Alliance Nebraska Public Schools Hall of Fame, and received the 2023 Distinguished Alumni Award from Chadron State College. So, Dr. and Colonel Josh McConkey, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
Ken, thank you very much. I appreciate the warm introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for your service. Really appreciate that. We're definitely a pro-veteran show, and a lot of things that we do with our company and our businesses and things like that reflect that as well, and charitable things. But this is like a loaded question for someone like you, but if you would, tell us a little bit about your career, your journey, your entrepreneurial journey as well.
Yeah. So, you know, as an emergency physician, you know, you're always working for hospital systems and hospital groups. And in 2021 or about 2020, I had an opportunity to own my own freestanding emergency department. It was it was a great opportunity. We had this in Texas, just north of Austin. And what started off as a fantastic business really teaches you about, you know, getting involved in the community, the marketing, building that business from the ground up. It was a wonderful challenge. Things were going extremely well. And I learned very quickly that you have to trust and put yourself in a position to work with people that you trust. And unfortunately, I was unsuccessful in that. So about a year into the business, you know, making great money. I mean, we're approaching 7 figures. I only had 10% ownership of the business. And we found out that our CEO was embezzling money. There were some Medicare laws that were being violated as well. And I had applied for a national security position on the National Security Council as an Air Force reservist. So I'm also fellowship board in disaster medicine. And this is before COVID. So, you know, I guess it was probably about 2019. And when I go through some of the screening process, they ask a lot of questions about businesses, and I couldn't answer those questions without having some issues. So I approached the CEO And it was a lesson in what happens when you don't have majority ownership. So he basically had control of the bank account, starved us out. He first offered me a $3.4 million bribe, which probably tells you how concerned he was with my reports that I had filed with Texas Health and Human Services and the FBI. And unfortunately for me, as we filed our lawsuit to stop him from bankrupting the company, because he basically tried to punish us, COVID hit, froze everything in the courts, and I ended up losing about $5 million, and things got really crazy. And that he even threatened me and my family. And so right towards the end of 2021, we actually moved to Australia. So I worked at Flinders University there just to give ourselves some time and distance. Everybody was just frozen with COVID. Nothing was working in the courts. FBI was so swamped with other issues. They're like, look, I'm not sure we're going to get a conviction. It's a very gray area. So sorry, just too bad for you. But having that majority ownership is really key. And when you don't, you're kind of at the mercy of a business partner that does have over 50%.
So I have to ask, so was that the big part of it I advise people all the time, especially going into partnerships and things like that, whether it's someone you've known since kindergarten and, Bob would never do that. Bob's a great guy and everything. I always tell people, I recommend you got to find not only a good attorney, a great attorney, and an attorney that deals with whatever it is you're dealing with. Not someone who's, my cousin's friend who, is a divorce attorney, but he's going to look over these business papers. No, don't cheap out on those things, because I don't care if you've known Bob since kindergarten and you're 50 years old now, and Bob's always been one of your best friends. Sometimes people get into make bad decisions and poor life choices based on other things going on in their lives, right? And so people get into, various nefarious things that cause them to make some bad decisions that are out of character, they would never normally do. And I'm not suggesting that's what happened to you, but was it more so that just because he was majority that he was like, hey, I can do whatever the heck I want? Is that kind of where you really got in the bad shape?
So we had two other businesses. So there were six ownership partners total. So the three of us, we had, I think, 44% ownership with me and two residency classmates. So I had known these guys for over 15 years. So we went way back. Mm-hmm. The problem was we didn't do that research on the majority shareholder. He had already been involved in 2 lawsuits at some other freestanding emergency departments, one in Arizona, one at another location in Round Rock, Texas. I didn't put that. I should have put a lot more time into that. I really trusted one of my colleagues, residency colleagues, and that put us in a very bad position. And I own that. That's something I have to take responsibility for. And unfortunately, it cost me a ton of money. And then the crazy thing is, you dial the clock forward a few years, I ended up winning the lottery this year. So karma works out in the end, right?
There you go. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. And I wasn't bringing that up to try to rub salt in the wound or whatever, but I think it's an important lesson for people to learn, is that you just never know. And it's so important to make sure, especially when you're going into business and you're talking about potentially millions of dollars, tens of millions, whatever it might be. Again, talking with Dr. and Colonel Josh McConkey. We're gonna hit the break here. We'll put this in the show notes as well, but his website is waitbehindthespear.com. We'll come back after the break on Mr. Biz Radio.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit getpulsetools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@MrBizSolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. Again, talking with Dr. and Colonel Josh McConkey. So I want to get to this, your whole ethos behind be the weight behind the spear, because I think it's very fascinating. I think people are going to love that. We were talking, I should have waited. We were talking during the commercial break a little bit about the importance, like we talked about, but I've shared the story on the show before, but I have a kind of he's a friend, I guess I would call. He's a kind of a distant friend, but he was involved. Real quick version of it is he was involved in this company, got outside investors, cheaped out on an attorney, his own words, and because he was so excited about it, the company was growing. He was going to be the CEO. These external VC investors were coming in. They grow the company from a $6 million company to a 70-some million dollar company. And one day he comes in the office and they came in and they're like, hey, by the way, we need to pack up and we don't need you anymore. It's like, I'm the CEO. Like I built this thing. I built it from 0 to 6 and you guys came in and we built, and they're like, oh yeah, well, paragraph, page 74, paragraph 2, sentences 3 and 4. We can buy you out at any time we want for $500,000. And he gets 0, nothing. Ooh. No ownership, no stake going forward, no anything. So he builds this company from, he started from scratch, built it to 6, and then got these investors, and then built it, to a 10x, 11, 12x multiple of that. And they bought him out for $500,000. And
that's a mistake you only make once, huh?
Yeah. And he said, it's because I was too cheap. And that's the reason I mentioned it during the first segment is that's exactly what this guy did. And this guy's a smart guy. He said he was super excited. He trusted these guys. He had a good rapport with them. And he needed an attorney. He goes, I'm unsophisticated. He goes, I didn't finish college. He goes, I had a friend. I go, hey man, I was talking to him. I'm like, I got this really exciting opportunity. I need an attorney. And they're like, oh, my cousin's an attorney, or, whatever, my uncle or somebody. And they're an attorney in a different field. And so they're like, yeah, I'll take a look at it for you, right? And they're just not well versed in that specific aspect of litigation, of law. And so they just completely swung and missed on it. And so he gets bought out of this 70-some million dollar company. Well, it was way more than a 70 million. That's what they're doing in revenue. Wow. So it was way more than that. It grew from 6 million in revenue to 70. So, and so it was significantly higher value than that. But he got bought out for $500,000. Because he just, it kind of, didn't cross all his T's, dot all his I's. So it's, oh man, I can't emphasize enough how important it is. And again, not trying to pour salt in the wound. But it's so important. I want to make sure people, other people don't fall victim to that, or, fall into that trap or whatever. So important. All right, so let's get to be the weight behind the spear. Tell us a little bit about that, how you developed it, what it means, etc.
So it's my personal leadership ethos as a military commander. It's worked very well in business, as we were building and growing that company. Mm-hmm. I've worked with special operations, it's combat search and rescue. If people know what pararescue PJs are, and these types of individuals are the tip of the spear. And the way I'll explain it to people is that, I'm a doctor. I save lives. I don't take them. So these guys are the tip of the spear. They're kicking down doors, taking out bin Laden, rescuing, those Thai children stranded in the caves that flooded in 2018. Like, these guys do amazing things. Each one of them has someone that was really important in their life, either a coach, a teacher, a volunteer, or a family member that gave them the amazing confidence to do the crazy things that they do, because they're just mentally so tough and just physically NFL caliber athletes, right? So we can't all do that. I definitely am not built that way. I cannot do the things they do, but I can be the weight behind that spear. And that's what the best resource we have in this country. When you talk like business leadership, coaches, teachers, volunteers, anybody in those leadership positions, that's our best resource. You can be the weight behind the spear and help build up those future leaders business, military, your community. It's my leadership ethos.
I love it. I love it. So what are some ways, I don't want to give away too much because I don't want to talk about still yet, again, trying to attract, retain, and recruit and build that leadership with this new sort of generation or whatever. But what are some things, what are some ways that we can look at things to be that weight? How can you look at something and go, okay, I have a sphere. How can I be the weight? How do I get to be the weight behind that? How can you determine how you can get into that role to be the weight? I'm not the sphere, I'm not the tip, as you said, but how can I be that weight? How can you look for opportunities to be able to do that?
Everybody has unique talents and gifts. Everybody brings something different to the table, but what they do matters. So realizing that they do have something to give, whether it's volunteering in your church or your school or coaching Little League, even right in your own home, doing something as simple as just sitting down and having dinner with your family at night. It seems small. It's something that gets overlooked. Everyone is so busy. They're pulled in. I know I have 3 kids. We're pulled in 100 different directions with practice and piano lessons and work and military duty. But just sitting down with your kids and sharing their day with them helps build confidence. You ask them what went well, what didn't go well. Hey, what different decisions could you have made? Would it have changed the outcome of the day? That's how they learn. That's how they build their confidence, and they can go out there and explore that world a little bit and hopefully do something to make the world a better place.
I love it. Yeah. So I've lived that as a father. We've got 3 daughters, and I've got to stand. I'll never miss a game performance ever. Like, unless there's absolutely no way that's avoidable. And I think over the years, our oldest are one's out of college, one's a senior in college, and we have one that's a freshman in high school. And I think I missed 1 game of our oldest because I was on a business trip in New York and my flight got delayed. I was going to be back, but it was out of my control to get back. So I missed a game, and I felt terrible about it because I think, as you said, it's a small thing, but it's not. Because as I look back at things, I can tell you right now, and I'm 53 years old, I could tell you what games my parents were not at. I remember all the way back because that's how much it meant to me to be able to look up in the stands and see my parents there. And so I personally know that. And so I'm like, I'm not going to be that dad that's not there. And I love Jesse Itzler, a person I follow a lot on social media, and he talks about, he's like, I never don't have time for my kids. He's like, if I'm tired and I had a long day and it's 8 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock at night, and my son says, hey, can we go out in the backyard and have a catch?
Yep.
Yes, we can. I'll get off the couch. I'll go have catch with you. I'll play catch with you. I think it's so important. And that's a great example you brought up about being that weight, and a great example of behind the spear of your own family, and I think it's so important as a parent.
That physical presence. I'm a physician, and you'll see a lot of surgeons, you'll see some, high-level business executives, and they'll say, it's so busy. It's not about the amount of time you spend with your family. Just make sure it's quality time. That's complete baloney right there. Yeah. It is about the time, and you have to make that time for your family because your kids know that. They feel that.
Oh yeah. 100%. Good stuff. We got to hit another break here. Again, you can find out more at weightbehindthespear.com, weightbehindthespear.com. Again, we'll put it in the show notes. You can also follow Dr. and Colonel Josh McConkey, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Definitely go out and check out some of the stuff there. We're going to come back after the break. We're going to talk more so about, again, developing these folks, I was calling them kids earlier, that are in this kind of COVID generation that have had their lives change so much in their career trajectories, et cetera, on Mr. Biz Radio.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20 plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right, only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit GetPulseTools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. Again, you can find out more at waitbehindthespear.com. Dr. and Colonel Josh McConkey. So, Josh, let's talk a little bit about this. So, obviously, you've got this amazing experience. We didn't even touch on a lot of it because there's just so much of it. And I'm not trying to just patronize you. I mean, it's super impressive. But because of that experience, not only as a physician, your experience in the military, your experience at Duke, et cetera, what are some things that, I know I talk to business owners every day and they're struggling with, finding good people and then retaining and developing that talent. And I think a lot of part about the retention is before that is developing. People aren't, especially as superstars, if they're not being developed, you're not going to retain them, right? They're going to be looking for other opportunities. Especially in this post-COVID era, we've been talking about, what are some things that we can help be the weight behind the spear to, again, help recruit, develop, and retain those folks?
As a business owner and as a military commander, I've worked a lot with 18 to 25-year-olds, in the military. And you've seen such a lack of resiliency. Just they don't overcome even the smallest little obstacles. You have to get them engaged very, very early. So number one is just getting them ownership in your organization. If you don't get them involved, if you don't get them plugged in, they're going to bail faster. So you getting some ownership of that. The great book by Coach K, the Duke basketball coach. I actually got to meet him, and he was a great leadership lecture several years ago. And that was just one of the number one things on his teams is just ownership. So getting them ownership in your organization, feeling like they're part of that team as quickly as possible, or they're going to bail.
Yeah, I think I love that because, and I agree with that 100%. I saw it during my corporate career at JP Morgan. We would bring in people that were interns even. And then the idea was if they were good interns, we would offer them full-time positions. And a lot of my colleagues were like, well, they really didn't want much to do with the interns until or unless they made it, to become full-time employees. And I'm like, no, man, you got to start up here. Like, how's this person going to decide if this is an organization they want to move forward with in their careers if there's not some of that ownership, right? So let me ask, kind of taking a twist from that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to sound like grouchy old man when I say this. So the ownership versus accountability, because I will say, I also feel like some of this generation coming up, not only some of the accountability is maybe not there. And I think, again, this is anecdotal, but I think in some ways, if you push too hard on the accountability, like maybe when you and I were coming up, the accountability was super important. And especially, I'm sure, military, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. And if you don't like that, tough, that's just how it is, right? And I feel like, at least my perception of this generation that's coming up in that, that age range, sometimes if you push a little bit too hard on that accountability, they just, like you mentioned, I mean, I'm gonna over dramatize it. They fold like a cheap suit. Like, yeah, hey, I don't want any of that.
Well, Ken, you're a genius. That's literally my number 2 is the accountability portion of that.
Okay.
And when I bring that up, it's got to start out with upper management and yourself. Like as a commander, I hold myself accountable. When they see, like when I took over my organization, I had 2 senior executives, 2 lieutenant colonels that had been a part of the squadron and had done absolutely nothing for years. Nothing. They hadn't even done their own performance reports in almost 4 years, which is completely impossible. It's not even possible. So the first thing I did is I had some discussions with them. I gave them a defined amount of time to kind of reverse course, and then they were retired. So, no longer part of the organization. And when they see you hold upper management like that accountable as well, they tend to fall right in line, and they respect you as a leader much more. And you hold yourself to those same standards. That's the third one, is standards and not rules. They're not real big on rules, But if you address it as just standards in this organization, like for my squadron, it's the biggest privilege that I have is commanding these men and women. And, when we're not meeting those standards, that's where I sit down and we have those difficult discussions. But standards and not rules, that's number 3.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yeah, I think it's super important. And I think, again, at least in my experience, coming from a little bit of a different sphere, I think the people that honestly, this is going to sound a little bit harsh, honestly, but that you want to keep around, they want some of that, right?
Yeah,
They want the
yes.
ownership and they want some accountability, and they want to make sure that you're holding others accountable. I talk about all the time, you can't fire a bad employee fast enough. And I know that sounds absolutely terrible, but it starts to erode. You end up losing the superstars because, and the good employees and good and above, because you're not holding them accountable. And then who ends up, bearing the weight of all that? If you got someone who's not pulling their weight, you're probably going to shift unknowingly or maybe knowingly more of the work, more of the burden to your superstars. And at some point, your superstars say, the heck with this.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be appreciated and I don't want to have to pull my weight plus others that aren't being held accountable. So I think that's, even in the corporate world, was something that was super, super important.
Absolutely. And you talk like the next steps there is really about empowering your people to make decisions and don't micromanage. I've learned that from some great military generals like George Patton, if you go back to World War II. And the way I explain that is you have to be able to evaluate your talent and trust your people. So that falls on you as a manager and as a leader. So if you're making good choices and evaluating talent, you empower them to make that decision. You do not micromanage. If you're not getting the outcomes that you need, then you made a bad choice and you need to find some new people. So that's on you as a leader, but don't micromanage. If you're not getting the results, it's because you didn't make a good decision and you need to reevaluate that.
Yeah, I love that. Jamie Dimon, Chairman, CEO of JP Morgan, he was my mentor, didn't know he's my mentor. And he said, I don't want yes men. He said, if I have 8 direct reports and 7 people disagree with everything I say, I have 7 people I made bad decisions on and or need to get rid of. I want people who can push back on me, et cetera. And it's super important. And I used to tell people who reported to me, right along those same lines, don't bring me problems, bring me solutions. Meaning, I trust you, right?
Yeah.
You know your area of the business. So if there's a problem in your area, don't come to me and say, hey, Ken, such and such blew up. What do I do? I hired you to run that area. So you come to me and say, this blew up. Here's what I want to do. There's 2 other options. It's this or this. Are you cool with me moving with number 1? Yes, let's go. Right. And so I think it's, again, a big part of that, what you're talking about, that empowerment. I don't want to micromanage. If I have to micromanage you, again, I made a poor decision.
Yeah.
I don't want to
you.
micromanage people. How many people have you ever come across in your entire career who said, I want to be micromanaged? I've never found one freaking person who has ever said that. Some people want a little more structure than others, of course.
I've seen 1 or 2. They didn't last very long.
Yeah, no one wants that, right? And so I don't want to manage people that way either. I don't want to lead people that way either. So again, I think you kind of can weed that out. But so what are some things that we can look for as we are trying to find those people who will accept some of those things, right? The ownership, the accountability, the standards. What are some things to look for sort of upfront in that process? Is there anything you've delved from your experience?
And just the key is tying all of those together. So with the micromanagement and the empowerment, when you've given them that buy-in and they take ownership of that, you're going to know generally within the first couple of weeks, with a hire, asking the right questions. In the military, it's the personnel moves are a little bit more difficult. But when I evaluate at least my officers, you have so many people that just come straight from active duty on the enlisted side. You don't get really much of a say. Getting them that buy-in and just the esprit de corps and the morale of the squadron, you can turn some people around. But on the officer side, I do have complete control over that. And so asking those right questions, making sure you actually do your due diligence and talk with previous managers, looking at those performance reports. So much of them are just fluff. But if you can dive down on those questions and really pin them down on some of those, you can tell the people they're going to be able to take that ownership and make those next steps.
Yep. I love it. Awesome information. Dr. and Colonel Josh McConkey, appreciate you coming on the show. Great information. I absolutely loved it. I'm sure people are going to love it as well.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have a fantastic remainder of your week. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.